Nobody really expected much when Straight Outta Compton dropped, especially since the whole story was basically told through Dr. Dre's lens. Dre's version of himself was almost flawless, like the ultimate rap game messiah. But according to some insiders, it was all far from the truth.
It seemed like Dre tried to make himself seem like the man. You know, he turned himself into a gangster, and everybody know that's not Dre's character.
From Dre, throwing hands with a blood member like he was really out there in the streets, to painting EAZY-E'S character as the ultimate villain.
I feel that they could have did a little bit more justice with representing EAZY-E a little bit more.
And let's not forget the omitted parts, like the part where he actually assaulted Denise D. Barnes, and plenty of other women too.
In Los Angeles, Dee Barnes, host of the Fox TV rap show Pump It Up, is filing a civil suit against Dr. Dre.
It's safe to say that a lot of people in the industry believe this movie twisted the truth about Dre, making him out to be both a saint and a tough guy. Let's get into it. In Dre's version of events, EAZY-E comes across as a bitter, foul-mouthed troublemaker, a clueless pushover, or a small-time hustler using ghostwriters and betraying his friends.
This is what you think, right? Turning your back on somebody after.
But those who actually knew him paint a totally different picture.
We didn't get that from him at all. Like he was EAZY was riding on the high.
They remember him as a complex, kind-hearted guy, not the one-dimensional villain we see in the movie, and definitely someone you wouldn't want to mess with.
Then he tried to make, EAZY was a cool dude, don't get me wrong. EAZY wasn't no pushover, no super tough guy, but at the same time, he wasn't gonna let you with him either.
One of the most talked about scenes is how the movie portrays EAZY's final days. It shows him breaking down in tears after getting an HIV diagnosis.
Look, I'm truly sorry, Mr. Wright. Mr. Dre.
But people who were close to him have called that scene way over the top.
I don't like how it was portrayed that EAZY-E was like broken, like stressing. Like when he died.
The members of Bone Thugs and Harmony, who were with EAZY until the end, said it didn't happen like that. They explained that EAZY didn't let his diagnosis get him down.
We didn't get that from him at all. Like EAZY was riding on the high because he knew he had us.
Now, of course, EAZY was sad about his condition, but the movie's overly emotional portrayal doesn't line up with what people who knew him experienced.
I would say a little bit more accurate because he was extremely happy at the end of his life.
It seemed like the filmmakers exaggerated for dramatic effect, making the scene more intense than it really was. Another big issue in the film is the claim that EAZY was broke in his later years.
The fact that they tried to make him look like he was broke, he bought and all this shit.
The movie shows him supposedly downsizing and struggling financially, but according to people like BG Knockout, that's just not true.
When to start slanging, all that was EAZY was rich as
Actually, EAZY was far from broke. His company, Ruthless Records, was worth hundreds of millions.
Why do you think that it was portrayed that your dad was broke near the end?
Hollywood. Gotta have a moving storyline. So, not true. You know, he was in the biggest house that as a child, every house that I went through to live with him was in.
He had a solid bank account, the top group and album in the country, and multiple properties. Definitely not just one small house like the movie shows.
I mean, I never saw that. I never seen him, and he never gave me no indication that he downgraded houses.
Okay.
So I can't say it either or. I mean,
okay.
The house I went to was a big, beautiful house.
To put it into perspective, EAZY was worth around $50 million when he passed.
Like, EAZY was still balling out of control. He was rich as
EAZY-E was worth $50 million at the time that he passed.
1995.
He owned several homes in upscale areas like Norwalk, Topanga, Westlake, Calabasas, and Woodland Hills. His place in Woodland Hills was especially nice, sitting on a hill with amazing views and a peaceful vibe away from the city chaos.
And it was in the biggest house that, you know, Daddy, we come to the house all the time. This house is it, you know, behind a gated, gated community.
But EAZY wasn't just about money. He was a devoted father who made sure his kids had everything they needed.
But my father was a father, so memories is just, being there for his kids, no matter how busy he got, you know what I mean? No matter on a fond memory that you're asking me about the times you should just come and pick me up. Karate class, I'm testing for my blue belt, you know what I mean? I'm in karate, I look up, And he's walking in.
He reportedly spent over $20,000 a year per child on private Christian Montessori schools and dropped more than $50,000 a month on child support.
Of course, all the mothers went to court. All of them were given child support, and all of them were given Social Security for their children.
And when it came to birthdays, designer clothes, jewelry, and the latest toys, he went all out. His son, Eric Wright Jr., even shared that they'd spend time together playing Sonic the Hedgehog. Aside from being a dad and a rapper, EAZY was also a savvy businessman with a knack for spotting opportunities. He got involved in a bunch of different projects, like creating a comic book series called The Hood with Rob Liefeld, the guy who co-created Deadpool.
Hey man, I want to do comics with you. And I'm like, dude, name the place, let's do comics. He would start calling me more than my mom. It'd be 10 a.m. in the morning. Rick, hey Rob, is it you? And so I actually did a page of designs, a couple pages, for a book called The Hood.
Developing speakers called EAZY-E'S bass shakers, and even had plans for a video game.
With the little room, EAZY-E'S Rufus bass shakers coming.
Screenplay called Smiling Faces, and a film studio. In 1994, he launched the Ruthless radio show on K-Day's 92.3 The Beat, and it quickly became a hit, dominating its time slot.
Hello? Hey, get on the radio and do something like that. Okay, we got corrupted. Who was that on the phone? We got corrupted.
FBI files show that around the time of his death in 1995, Ruthless Records was pulling in over $10 million a month in revenue. The label was actually the first independent one to outsell major record companies. Even after he passed, EAZY's legacy lived on. His widow still owns N.W.A.'s catalog, and royalties from old Ruthless artists continue to bring in money for his estate. With streaming services taking over, EAZY's music and business ventures will probably keep raking in cash for years to come, so the whole broke narrative in the movie was far overflogged. BG Knockout thinks it was a deliberate move, to mess with EAZY's legacy and paint him in a negative light, especially by Dre and others involved.
I don't get like why they put that in the movie. So to me, it seemed like they was trying to skew his legacy.
Another side of EAZY that Straight Outta Compton totally ignored was how generous and kind-hearted he was. People who knew him always mention his big heart and how he had a soft spot for those society tended to forget about. Whether it was small acts of kindness or bigger gestures, EAZY showed his compassion over and over again. EAZY was the kind of guy who kept it real, whether it was in his own neighborhood or out in the world. In Compton, he'd do little things like buying ice cream for the kids, and in Calabasas, he'd spend hours skateboarding with the younger crowd. But it wasn't just about the everyday stuff. When it came to helping people, he went all in. During the holidays, he'd suit up as Santa Claus, handing out gifts and making sure families in need had Thanksgiving turkeys. And he didn't stop there. He'd take his employees' kids on Disney trips and even dropped over $600 on merch just to make sure those moments were unforgettable.
We know, and then we keep repeating the fact of that our father did a lot of this for us, you know what I mean?
EAZY always wanted to open doors for kids who might not have had the same chances as others. He sponsored rodeo events to give inner-city youth a taste of something different, and he spent time talking to incarcerated teens, pushing them to turn things around.
Achievement for all the inner-city kids to be here?
Yeah, I think so. I know so.
And it wasn't just his time he gave. He put his money where his heart was. He supported charities like City of Hope Memorial Hospital, was involved with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and backed athletes and entertainers for kids. His generosity even got him an invite to a 2-day fundraiser hosted by President George H.W. Bush in 1991. But if there's one story that really shows who EAZY was, it's the one Cocaine told. Cocaine, a member of Above the Law, shared how EAZY literally saved his kids' lives. His twins were born prematurely and needed an expensive operation. Without hesitation, EAZY canceled a major business meeting, drove from Calabasas to Fontana, and handed over $30,000 to sort out the medical bills. I honor that brother to this day, Cocaine said.
Before my kids was born, they were born prematurely, twins. They was about to be born, they needed to be born 7 months. So they needed a major operation. Eric had an important meeting to go to. Eric Wright canceled his meeting, drove up to Fontana, California. You understand? And cash them people out $30,000 cash here.
For so many people, EAZY wasn't just a boss or a business partner. He was a mentor, a protector, and a friend. He had this rare ability to see potential in people, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. He pushed them to dream bigger, aim higher, and believe in more than what they thought was possible. The movie completely left this side of EAZY out. Instead, it made him look like a pushover, which couldn't be further from the truth. One of the wildest scenes in Straight Outta Compton is the one where Suge Knight supposedly bullies EAZY into signing over Dr. Dre's contract to Death Row. They made it seem like Suge just walked in, smacked EAZY around, and forced him to give up Dre.
Mouth.
Anyone who really knew EAZY knew that was pure fiction. He wasn't the type of guy you could just press like that. He had serious connections, deep ties with the Crips and the Mexican Mafia. Both BG Knockout and Keith D have flat out said Suge never laid a hand on EAZY.
EAZY getting beat up.
Yeah,
by
you
Suge
know.
and his people.
You don't want that problem.
And let's be real, if Suge had tried anything, he would have been starting a war with the Southside Crips, and that's a move nobody in their right mind would make. EAZY's ties to the Mexican community were just as strong, and years later, he made that bond even deeper when he signed Brownside, a Chicano rap group led by the late Toker, along with another key figure in the Latino rap scene, Kid Frost. At a time when mainstream hip-hop wasn't giving Latino rap much respect, EAZY saw the vision. He knew Chicano rap was going to be a major force, way before anyone else did. Brownside, in particular, was something different. Under EAZY's guidance, they became pioneers of the genre, setting the tone for what Chicano rap would become. And they weren't just rappers hopping on a trend. These were real street dudes telling real stories. No exaggerations, no gimmicks, just raw, unfiltered reality. One of the craziest stories about Brownside's loyalty to EAZY happened during the peak of the Ruthless versus Death Row beef. Everybody knew Death Row wasn't playing around. Suge had a reputation for intimidation. But as Toker later revealed, Brownside played a huge role in making sure EAZY was protected. According to Toker, he and the Brownside crew showed up at Ruthless Records right when things started getting heated between EAZY and Suge. Toker described it as almost fate, like destiny brought them there at just the right time. Death Row's crew had assumed they could overpower EAZY because they thought he was alone and vulnerable, but they were wrong. Brownside was already there, ready to ride for EAZY without hesitation. Toker said they let EAZY know straight up, "We're here, and we're ready to back you up no matter what."
We got to Ruthless when the Death Row Ruthless beef was cracking. So they thought they were gonna overpower my boy because my boy was by himself. But you know Destiny took Toker and the Brownside clique to Ruthless.
Toker said that during one of their conversations, they told EAZY straight up, "If there's anyone you want gone, just say the word." EAZY, being the kind of guy he was, tried to brush it off. He told them, "It's not like that, man," trying to downplay the situation. But Toker wasn't having it. He looked EAZY in the eye and said, "Nah, it's exactly like that."
Make a long story short, we told E, we rolling with you, fool. We got your back. What's cracking with this Death Row Roof? Who you want gone? Cause we ain't around.
He made it loud and clear that if EAZY wanted something handled at any given time, they had youngins, kids 15 or 16, who were more than ready to step up to the task and get it resolved ruthlessly. In Toker's words, at most they'll be out by 22, so you don't gotta worry about a thing. That's how far they were ready to go for EAZY.
You're like 15? Alright, don't worry about it, E. I'ma send my little young juvenile torpedo so they can go ahead and do YA life. They're gonna let my boys out when they're 22 years old. Don't worry about it.
After that, EAZY and the Mexican community became even tighter, wherever he went. Whether it was high-end restaurants, important meetings, or big events, he made sure Brownside and his Mexican homies were with him. And they weren't just there for show. They were ready for whatever, hoping to cross paths with Death Row's crew just to make a statement. They wanted to prove to EAZY, without a doubt, that they had his back to the very end.
Everywhere he went, he called his Mexicans. He called it Brown Brothers. Where you at? What's cracking? Swoop up over here, come in the Lolos. He be in Beverly Hills at an expensive restaurant. 20 Mexicans drive up. Hoping we ran into somebody from that row. Hoping. Because we wanted to make a statement. But luckily, never.
And then one day, they got their shot. According to Toker, EAZY was just chilling at a cheesecake factory when about 7 or 8 guys claiming to be with Death Row rolled up. They surrounded him, trying to press him. probably thinking they had him alone, maybe hoping to make a statement.
Car, and there was like 7, 8 that claimed death row waiting for their cars to pull up because they were leaving the Cheesecake Factory. Right when my boy E walked past them, they all surrounded him. What's up? And they were saying the N-word on him.
But what they didn't realize was that they had just walked into the wrong situation. Out of nowhere, the whole vibe flipped. Suddenly, it wasn't EAZY who was outnumbered. It was them. Toker said it felt like they had just stepped onto a packed Mexican soccer field. The whole place was filled with Mexican gang members who had EAZY'S back. And these weren't just random dudes. These were real ones, the kind you don't want problems with.
All of a sudden, them 7, 8 looked around like, we're surrounded. They thought they were at a Mexican soccer field surrounded by Mexican soccer players, but it was us. I said, what's up, man? You got beef with my brother EAZY? They were like, oh, damn. You got beef with my little brother EAZY? You got beef with me, and then my little homie started coming out with the heat. They were like, no, man.
The death row guys caught on real quick. They weren't the ones in control anymore, and they knew it. Without wasting a second, they booked it, ran straight to their cars, and peeled out like their lives depended on it. And just to make sure they got the message loud and clear, Toker hit them with one last warning before they left. In case y'all want to come back, you're more than welcome. We'll be right here waiting. That moment sent a message. EAZY-E wasn't moving solo. And if anyone thought they could intimidate him, they'd have to deal with the Mexican gangs of Compton first. Another really serious detail the movie also totally brushed over was Dr. Dre's history of assaulting women. When Straight Outta Compton came out, it caught a lot of flack for ignoring one of the darkest moments in N.W.A.'s past, Dre's violent attack on hip-hop journalist Denise D. Barnes back in 1991. What makes it worse is that the original 150-page script actually included a scene showing the assault in detail, but for some reason that part was just cut out. Director F. Gary Gray later said he chose to leave it out to focus more on N.W.A. as a group rather than dive into personal issues. But to a lot of people, it felt more like a cover-up. The attack on Barnes came after she interviewed Ice Cube, who was in the middle of his feud with N.W.A. after leaving the group. D. Barnes, a host on the Fox TV show Pump It Up, had interviewed N.W.A. multiple times before, so she was familiar with them and their whole crew.
Ice Cube of N.W.A. will be hanging out with him and all his homies at his house.
We'll be back after these commercials or breaks or cuts or whatever. Whatever. Don't go anywhere.
But the moment Cube called it quits, things took a turn. N.W.A. fired back at him on their track 100 Miles and Runnin', making it clear they weren't going to let him leave without drama. According to D. Barnes, when she got N.W.A. back on Pump It Up to talk about what they were up to, the vibe was tense right from the jump. Every question she asked seemed to get a shot in at Ice Cube, and things got so heated that the production crew had to cut out some of the more intense moments just to make the interview even airable. But here's where it all flipped. When the episode finally aired, it not only showed the N.W.A. interview, but also a clip from earlier on the Boys in the Hood set with Yo-Yo, who was tight with Cube. Out of nowhere, Cube jumps into the interview and starts throwing shade at N.W.A., using their own lyrics to diss them. And if that wasn't enough, Cube went after the Doc, who was close to Dre and had recently been in a car accident that wrecked his voice.
Ice Cube on Pump It Up. I got all suckers 100 miles and one. I'd like to give a shout out to the DLC.
For the record, even back then, D. Barnes said she didn't think they should air that segment, but as just the host, she didn't have any say in the final cut. Unfortunately, when it aired, the final edit made the whole thing way more dramatic than it needed to be by putting the two clips back to back. After Ice Cube's interview aired, D turned to the camera and joked about always being caught in the middle of any controversy.
So D, always in the middle of controversy right here on Pump It Up.
This was probably just her trying to defuse the situation, but in the edit, it made it look like she was adding fuel to the fire, almost like she was poking the bear and stirring up the beef between Cube and N.W.A. It made it seem like she was right in the middle of it all, almost enjoying the chaos. After that interview went down, things cooled off for a while, but eventually D and Dr. Dre crossed paths again. This time it was at a Def Jam Records party, and Dre, who was clearly still pissed about how the interview went, had been drinking. When he spotted D, he lost it. According to Rolling Stone's Alan Light in his article Beating Up the Charts, Dre grabbed her by the hair and started slamming her head and body against a brick wall near the stairs. His bodyguard kept the crowd at bay with a gun, making sure no one could step in. Dre tried to throw her down the stairs but couldn't, so he switched to kicking her in the ribs and hands. D somehow managed to break free and ran to the women's restroom, but Dre wasn't done. He followed her in there, grabbed her by the hair again, and punched her in the back of the head.
They grabbed me by my hair and started slamming me up against the wall. It's a painful and traumatic experience.
This brutal attack didn't go unnoticed. In interviews after the fact, members of N.W.A. were open about what had happened. MC Ren bluntly said she deserved it. B deserved it. EAZY-E backed him up, saying, yeah, B had it coming. Dre himself didn't apologize either, and when asked about it, he said, people talk all this ish, but you know, somebody F with me, I'm gonna F with them. I just did it, you know? Ain't nothing you can do now by talking about it. Besides, it ain't no big thing. I just threw her through a door.
That's what she get. I hope she get it again. She got beat down. The host of that show did something and she know what she did and got beat down, and I hope it happened again.
D. Barnes tried to sue Dre for $22.75 million, but the case was quietly settled out of court.
In Los Angeles, D. Barnes, host of the Fox TV rap show Pump It Up, is filing a civil suit against Dr. Dre.
And it's not just D. Barnes. Plenty of other women have also spoken out about Dr. Dre's behavior over the years. At the end of the day, the producers might have tried to spin a different version of who Dr. Dre was, but let's be real. It wasn't hard to see that he was just another guy trying to clean up his image in the whole Ruthless versus Death Row battle. But no matter how they framed it, one thing stays the same. EAZY's legacy is still rock solid to this day. And let's be honest, Dr. Dre never had the guts that the rest of the crew did. No amount of slick editing can rewrite the real story.